you set?
I had a
All right.
taller chair.
Now we got to make sure your phone the windows off. Just in case. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Tom Flynn, and I'm the chairman of the Board of Finance for the town of Fairfield. Well, I just got you all quiet. I'm going to ask you to make a little bit of noise. Get up while we say the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag over there. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, everyone. First of all, I would like to welcome you to what I think is our 5th annual Saturday discussion about the budget with your Board of Finance. The whole reason to put this into place several years ago was for us to have the opportunity to listen to you, as well as, where appropriate, address some misconceptions about the budget, about the process, and about our role in the process. So it's an information share, but primarily it's to listen to you. With that in mind, I do have some rules of the road that we need to obey here. As you can see, it's a standing room only crowd, so a lot of people would like to speak. We have a podium up here set up with a microphone. We are on Fair TV, both, I believe, probably being broadcast live, as well as we will be rebroadcast. I need you to come up to the microphone, clearly state your name and your address, write them down on the piece of paper there so we can record it in the minutes and so that we know who you are as we go forward with the meeting. I would also ask that you keep your comments brief. I know everybody wants to speak, and as you can tell, there's a lot of people here. The important part will be brief. Don't repeat yourself. Please try not to repeat what the person in front of you said. Please also realize this is an opportunity for comments, not necessarily questions. Okay? If we were to get into a question and answer session here, we could actually be here all weekend into next week. And so what the deal is we'd like you to make your comments. We'd like to hear from you. I also have a favor to ask of you, and this is an important one. And we do have some young people here in the room as well. We're going to be discussing some very passionate topics. Taxes, services, education, tax relief. All these items I'm sure are going to come up. People get very passionate about this. I would ask you to be respectful. I would ask you to keep your comments to a non-personal level. Certainly address the issue. Okay? I would ask you, when you disagree with the speaker before you, you do it in a respectful way, and you don't address them specifically. You address the topic. As I said, this is going to be broadcast. We need to set a good example and show that a public discourse does not have to be disagreeable. Okay? And that's very important. It's very important for all of us. It's something we try to do at our meetings, and it's something we try to do with each other. Now, a couple other messages. I want to thank my colleagues for coming out here. These guys work very hard. This is an unpaid board that we're very privileged and honored to serve on to represent you, the taxpayers. But we do go through about 15 budget hearings through the course of March. Those budget hearings typically start at 7 p.m. in the evening after long days of work and frequently go past 11 p.m. at night. We review thousands of pages of information, and we go through and sit down with department heads on a day-to-day basis and put in even more time and effort. So they deserve your respect for all the effort that they put in trying to be as well educated on the issues as they can. I can also assure you they're a very bright group of individuals. They listen to reason. They listen to well thought out points of view. They take it all into consideration and try to balance it. What they don't necessarily react to, because we can't, and you wouldn't want us to react to it as your representatives, is volume. And what I mean by volume is yelling, screaming, anything like that. It's got to be a dispassionate conversation from that point of view. All right? Another couple of comments. There's some misconceptions out there that I want to make sure everybody understands our role and what our role in the process is and where we are in that process. Okay? This board has not yet recommended any budget. We have not proposed any budget. We will not do that until we hear all the facts, until we take a vote on a budget that we will pass along to the RTM on April 2nd. So there's no proposals right now emanating from this board. Okay? Second, on the Board of Education budget, and this is a common refrain I say every year, because we are going to have lots of discussion on education here, about program, about where money is spent. Please know that this board, as well as the Board of Selectmen and the RTM after us, get to vote on one number. One number, that's it. We don't get to decide if there's an adjustment to the budget, positively or negatively, how those funds are spent. We've got a Board of Education that is an entirely separate entity that decides those items on our behalf. And I will acknowledge those people work very hard. They deal with very complex and emotional issues every day, every meeting, and they work very hard. And they deserve respect as well. But they are the ones that are responsible for how those funds are distributed amongst the education system. Second item, a lot of conversations about union contracts. And yes, we're a service organization. A lot of our expenses are personnel costs. This board is not involved in union negotiations. By law, we're precluded from being involved in union negotiations. When it comes to the town unions, those negotiations are ably handled by the first selectman and his team, and those contracts are ratified or turned down by the representative town meeting. When it comes to the Board of Education side, those contracts are negotiated by a team put together between the Board of Education and their administration, and they recommend those contracts again to the RTM. So I'm sure we'll have contract talks today. I'm sure there'll be comments. Totally appropriate. I just want to set the stage for what we can and cannot do in the course of these negotiations. When we get done with our process and we vote on April 2nd, it is our recommendation for that budget to go to the representative town meeting. Then they evaluate that budget through their process for about another month. And they approve the final budget in the beginning of May, where it comes back to this board to actually set the mill rate and the taxes as we go forward to the next fiscal year. Okay? With that, I want to recognize that several members of our Board of Selectmen are here, as well as our first selectman is kindly standing in the front of the room. Mr. Tetra, if you'd like to come and sit over here, please feel free. You're more than welcome. We do have armed guards over here. No, I'm kidding. We do have police presence here as well at my request for crowd control and making sure that we keep a certain level of decorum. So with that, thank you for being here. We appreciate your comments. We appreciate your email. We appreciate this opportunity to talk with you. I'm going to ask that one by one people feel free to come up to the podium and speak. Before I do that, I'm going to briefly recognize, this is Deb Garavel. She is our recording secretary. This poor woman has to listen to us and then write down what we say, so she's invaluable to us. Mr. Jim Brown, our vice chairman, Mr. Rob Bolito. Jim serves as our secretary. Mr. Jim Walsh, Mrs. Catherine Alman, Mr. Bob Stone, and Mr. Ken Brockfeld. We had two members who send their regrets. They unfortunately had some personal commitments that they could not rearrange for this morning. So, thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over to the public. So if you would please, anyone who'd like to speak, please come up. One more comment, RTM members. I would ask that we let the constituents speak first, and then we're more than happy to hear from our RTM members, but obviously the RTM members do have an opportunity to vote on this budget later in the process as well. So thank you.
Just one thing, ladies and gentlemen, on the microphone, you can tilt it down and tilt it up so that you can face it in face.
Thank you, Jerry. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Elizabeth Dillabaugh. I live at 109 Matilda Place in Fairfield, and I'm here joined by my colleague,
Bob Sussman. I live 83 Harwich Road.
I'm here to speak in support of the Fairfield Public Library and its proposed budget. I'm speaking as a Fairfield resident, but I am also a trustee of the Fairfield Public Library Board of Library Trustees. Let me speak first in support of the library and the myriad of services it provides to the residents of Fairfield. The library serves all members of the Fairfield community, from preschoolers to retirees. The Main is the second busiest library in the state, and the branch is the first busiest library in the state. Excuse me, the first busiest branch in the state. Patrons are accessing resources at the physical locations of both the branch and the Main, and accessing its information through its website, accessing its collections electronically, and providing accessibility to the public is of primary importance. Patrons have access to the branch or the Main 7 days a week. So why is the library so popular and so essential to our community? This library is a community center and a vital lifelong learning and information center. And here are some of the many programs appreciated by our community. The One Book, One Town program. The Bruce Kirschner Gallery at the Main showcases local and regional artists. Programming promotes lifelong learning. Librarians on loan go to book clubs. Community links to clubs and town resources. We have meeting room rentals. There are study rooms for study or meeting, computer labs, museum passes. Teens can participate in the Down Under program. And there are chess, book clubs, knitting clubs, and science programs. We also have a writer's workshop. The list continues. The library served as a lifeline to many in the community who needed a warm and welcoming place during the storms of the past few years. It serves as a community center where residents can gather, obtain water, recharge their electronics, read, relax, while their neighborhoods are well cared for by the other town bodies managing the challenges of the weather. And I have only touched the surface of what the library provides to our community. Let me speak now in support of the library's proposed budget. First, I'd like to thank our selectmen for proposing no cuts to the budget as presented. This year's budget demonstrates only a 0.9% increase over the current year. We need this budget to remain uncut. After last year's budget season, the library's budget was cut by $108,000. That cut was felt by all members of the Fairfield community. Those cuts were made with much deliberation to cause the least amount of distress to the patrons. The final decision was to curtail hours, but on a staggered basis between the Main and the branch, and thus the library was always accessible to the public, a primary consideration. This was a compromise that was not made lightly, but born out of necessity of the budget cuts of that year. And the goal was to provide the least impact on each demographic served and the most accessibility to the library by making at least one library, the branch or the Main, accessible to the Fairfield community. The materials budget was reduced, and again this decision was not made lightly. The town librarian would have preferred not to make this cut, and she would like to restore and supplement the materials. We, the staff, and most importantly the library patrons, desperately want the hours restored. And we want the library to be able to offer the programs and materials that its patrons want or need. And we understand these are difficult economic times. However, the library budget is already lean, and cuts to it would have a great adverse effect on its patrons. I appreciate your service on the Board of Finance, and thank you for your consideration of this matter.
Thank you. Before we move too much further, can I ask people within the room to move up a little bit? We do have standing room only crowd outside the room, so we'd like to be able, within appropriate measures, to move people up. We also have some scattered seats that are available. Also, for our speakers, thank you for those public comments. I am going to ask, in deference to the amount of people here, that we limit our public comments to 2 minutes. We are going to time in. Forgive me if I have to cut you off, but we do need to move it along, given how many people we actually have. Okay? So 2 minutes. Thank you for moving forward, and sir, feel free.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Fred Nangle. I live at 151 Woods End Road. I'm here to speak about the education budget in support of maintaining it. And I'm here to speak about the education budget, and I'm in support of maintaining it. I want to speak about the fact that if we contemplate cuts to the education budget or go for a smaller education budget, that has a direct impact on the future of Fairfield. People often say that our kids are our future, and that's definitely true. But there's more to it than that. If you cut teaching positions, teachers who are very talented have to waste a lot of time on crowd control. I've seen the difference myself in my children's experience and the difference between an 18-child classroom and a 24-child classroom. It's not good. I moved to Fairfield because of the education that's available in this town. It has a very good reputation, and I want to keep it that way. But if we cut the education budget, we cut teaching staff, we cut administrative staff, the schools can't function efficiently, and our children suffer. But that's not all that suffers. What suffers also is the value of all of your homes in the eyes of people like me who would like to move here. So, when people say that the education budget represents Fairfield's future, they're not just talking about the kids, they're talking about your future as well. Please remember that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Bellissimo, 175 Mills Pond Drive. Like everyone, my husband and I are making do on lower income and higher expenses. Our standard of living for the first time has gone down instead of up. It is a very emotional issue. So how do we see that the next generation, our children, have it better than we do now? Not by cutting education costs. Here are some of the arguments I have heard. The cost of education keeps rising. If you factor in the cost of inflation and the fact that the enrollment of students keeps increasing, the education budget has remained flat. Healthcare costs and funding pension plans are driving the increase. If you want to do something about those costs, address them. Don't take away the education that might be the only thing helping our children rise above mediocrity. The administration gets paid too much. What would a private sector executive in Fairfield County earn who directs employees of 1,000 and manages 10,300? I see our school administrators go to meeting after meeting, often being told they're not doing their job well, but they continue to work to make a difference in our children's lives. The school administration deserves more respects and many thanks from all of us. People are being forced out of town due to high taxes. Every house for sale within a few months is bought by a new young family moving in. Usually a family with children. Excuse me. Usually a house for sale. The rudeness needs to stop in this town. Usually every house for sale within a few months is bought by a young new family moving in. Usually a family with children who have come here for our educational system. No one is moving into Fairfield to retire. Reducing the quality of our schools will effectively reduce our home values. New construction keeps increasing. Where is the increase in the school budget for every new student? I am speaking to you as a parent who is sending her 2 children to private school next year. This is because my children have different educational needs, and I feel it is imperative to do everything in my power to give them the best education my husband and I can provide for them. Even though we can't afford it, and I'll be working until I die to pay for this, I believe in my heart that their only chance for success in life is through quality education. It would benefit me personally to see taxes stay as low as they are, but all kids deserve the best education we could give them. I get it. Job security is non-existent, and we all are working harder than ever to keep our heads above water. But I urge you, do your research, make up your mind, and speak out. Please support the Board of Education school budget in full as presented. Thank you.
Morning. My name is Bob Frigo. I've been a resident for 40 years. I'm a retired financial manager at GE, and I know the corporate world is different than municipals, but I've been through many more budgets.
Sir, can you give your address?
Oh, 39 Campbell Road in
you.
Fairfield. My compliments to the Board of Finance, because you folks go through this arduous process every year, and it's a very difficult process. My main concern, and I would suggest maybe in the future you having a bigger auditorium where everybody could sit, because, no, I really think And our town leaders should do this. This is a really good thing to do.
I'll tell you what, who knew? We had 5 people show up.
Okay. My main concern is not this year's budget. It's that the town seems to go through this process, this wrenching process, year after year, tweaking a percent here, a percent there, and there doesn't seem to be any hope we're going to get out of this deep rut. And you folks, your Board of Finance tries to cut expenses in face of every manager who comes up. I've not heard one yet that says I've got enough money. They're all stressed. Everybody's stretched to the max. Any reduction's going to threaten anything. There's no manager that doesn't say that. That's the way they all present their budgets. And I come from an environment where a few percent is sort of like, it's a way of life. You have to figure out how to get 5% productivity a year, or you don't proceed. You know? That's what managers should be paid to do. There appears to be no objective measuring. We tend to look at last year's actual as the base. Well, we spent this much last year, therefore, that's good. What are some objective measurements? What are other towns spending on similar things? What are best practices being used in other towns that are doing things better than we are? Because I'm sure we've got a lot to learn from others. I don't hear those comparisons with budgets. All I hear is what we got last year and why we need at least that much this year. In the short term, all expenses are pretty much fixed. Let's face it. We have units. How much can you really cut next month? Okay, almost done. What I'd like to do is challenge the town leaders, and it goes beyond your, take a long-term look. Where are we going to be 4 or 5 years from now? What do we have to do structurally to change where we are and get out of this rut? Maybe we have to change our revenue flow. If people are moving to Fairfield for the train stations, for the schools, for the libraries, maybe there ought to be a buyer's tax on purchases of homes to bring in more revenue. That would take some of the burden off. Real estate people are going to hate me, but that'll take some of the burden off the long-time shareholders. Anyway.
Can I ask one other item, just so, again, we can see the line out the door. Let's, I know a lot of people agree and disagree with certain things that are going to be said. Let's try to hold that down just because it is running into the time for the speakers as we run that clock. So, thank you, ma'am. Sorry.
My name is Caroline Trombley. I live at 49 Old Farm Road. I'm a graduate of Fairfield High School, class of 1998. As a student, I took advantage of several programs offered, including sports, gifted, and music. Given those opportunities, I know firsthand how having those offerings prepare me for college. Upon graduating from college, I was fortunate to come back and teach as part of the Strings program here in Fairfield. My focus is to inspire the students the way my teachers inspired me, and my hope is that these opportunities don't get taken away. Every year I see hundreds of students who find their talents as a member of our many orchestras and other music programs, which helps each and every one of them far beyond music class. These children gain confidence that helps them develop socially, emotionally, and academically. I am proud to say that I currently teach over 160 students, and this is just at 2 out of 11 elementary schools in town. All of these children, along with their parents, made the same choice I did when I was in 4th grade to be part of the Strings program. Without the 4th grade string lessons, as we saw 20 years ago when it was cut from the budget for a year, the students were never able to gain the musical skills and knowledge to make this music program what it is today. Although you may think that this would have little impact, it did, and it could if you wrongly choose to cut it again. A few years back, when it came time for my husband and I to buy a home and start a family, we never looked anywhere besides Fairfield. I want my children to have the joy I did growing up with the Fairfield school system, knowing they will have a strong academic foundation, along with the exceptional opportunities and programs offered from elementary to high school. I know what Fairfield education has given me. I see firsthand each day what it does for my students. As a homeowner and tax-paying parent in Fairfield, I strongly urge you to make the right choice for all of our children. Please don't cut the programs that set the Fairfield educational system apart from the rest.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Donna Schmardell. I'm the district music coordinator, so for all intents and purposes, my address is Fairfield Ward High School, where my office is. I'm here because I'm concerned about the education of our students, if anything is to happen to the education budget. I don't want to see any programs cut, but I'm here to specifically talk a little bit about the ramifications if either of the two cuts to the music program are realized. We have a cost to student learning that is very significant. One of the proposals was the elimination of the string program. The immediate cost to student learning of elimination of the string program would be to deny 503 students, or 69% of next year's fourth grade class, the opportunity to begin a string program. 503 students are projected to enroll in strings next year. Elimination of the fourth grade string program would be a 66% cut to the instrumental time the elementary string program would have, resulting in the students' inability to meet curriculum objectives as well as national standards in music through elementary, middle, and high school. This result would be realized for many years, as Mrs. Trombley just mentioned, as this happened several years ago, and the effects were seen through high school, both in student enrollment and achievement. Our music program received an Excellence in Education Award by the Connecticut Arts Administrators Association in November of 2012. We received this award because of our comprehensive curriculum, which is standards-based and sequential. Also because of the high performance of our students, or the high level of achievement our students have. Small group lessons was another area that was identified as a possible cut if the education budget is reduced. Small group lessons are a critical and distinct part of our instrumental curriculum. In these weekly 30-minute lessons, or 1.5% of a student's hours spent each week in school, students learn the unique skills needed to play their particular instrument. Then they take these skills and apply them in the ensemble setting, where they learn apply those skills and learn different skills for ensemble playing.
Thank you.
That's it?
Yeah, well, that was I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bob McGuffey, 144 Mayweed Road, Fairfield, and I'd like to, just in light of the fact that many municipalities, such as ours, states such as ours, and indeed our federal government, are on the road to fiscal bankruptcy, I'd like to alert and maybe advise of the destructive impacts of Obamacare as it works its way through our communities. And I'll cite two here in the 4th District. In Greenwich, the base case for the health costs in Greenwich right now is $51 million. In 5 years, that's projected to be $92 million. With Obamacare, and the actuaries just did the analysis and provided to Greenwich, it's going to be $122 million. That's a $30 million increase over 5 years. On the base case, that's a 32% increase. That's for the whole town of Greenwich. 32% increase, $30 million over five years just for Obamacare, its mandates and its taxes. Second case, Ridgefield, public school budget for health care. Base case right now, $13 million. In 5 years, that's projected on the base case to be $28 million. With the taxes and mandates of Obamacare, that's to be $36 million. $8 million extra just for those taxes and mandates, a 28% increase. And I'm just curious as to whether you guys have done any analysis here in our town on the impacts of Obamacare and what that's going to do to our budget. Thanks, and I have the article here for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You could just leave that with us. Thank you.
Morning. I'm Mike Varga, 595 Rock Ridge Road in Fairfield. The selectman, I think, has written a very good letter to the editor. I'm sure you've all read it, and anyone who has not read it, I encourage them to do that. Dr. Teitel has been very vocal and articulate about the cuts that have been made over the past couple of years to the Board of Education budget, and how he believes that there's really not an awful lot left to cut until you cut into the classroom and truly affect the students. My family has lived in Fairfield. I grew up in Fairfield, got educated here. My children were educated here. We paid taxes for over 70 years in the town. We've supported the golf courses, even though we don't golf. We've supported the marinas, even though we don't boat. I don't frequent the library an awful lot, but I certainly appreciate it when it is time to go into the library. I think you are faced with an enormous task now, because you have to take the risk of cutting budgets for next year, and probably most notably the education budget. It's easy to cut because it's big numbers. But I think, you think about Penfield Pavilion, drive by there now, there's a big X on the door. Apparently, it either has to be taken down or it has to be renovated. It's going to cost an awful lot of money. You could save an awful lot of money by simply tearing it down and not rebuilding it, but that's not an answer. You can't do that to the infrastructure of this town, so it makes it so great. If you begin to cut at the education budget, the fear for my part is that you're going to cut away the foundation of the education budget and affect negatively the future of the education budget in Fairfield for future children. Thank you. Good luck.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Vincent Mayola. I live at 141 Homeland Street. I was recently asked, what would you do to reduce the current town budget and hold the spending to a maximum of 2%? I thought about this for a minute and said, when my wife and I waited in line to vote for the first selectman, board of selectmen, the board of finance members, and my district RTM representatives, it was our understanding we're about to vote for people that will hold the line on spending and who are going to protect us from tax increase proposals as recently presented by our first selectman. You are our representatives. You are the groups that, after interviewing first selectmen, all town managers, and listening to the comments of the Fairfield taxpayer, you will have to make the difficult decision to minimize tax increases and have our town function within that budget. As you know, it has been a trying and difficult economy for you, me, and many of our Fairfield taxpayers. We all have to understand there is a shared sacrifice by all to minimize this tax increase. But you have the assignment, and it is you who have been trusted by all citizens of Fairfield to see through all the smoke and fog of what the budget should be and not what others would like the budget to be. Our first selectman commented in the March 23rd Minuteman, we all made a choice to live here because of the services our town provides. 41 years ago, I also made a choice to live here, never ever realizing I may not have a choice to stay here. The first selectman also noted in this article, when we discuss lowering expenses, we really mean lowering services. Well, maybe, just maybe, what the first selectman should have said is when we discuss lowering expenses, we really mean we found ways to be more efficient.
Sir, you're over 2 minutes now, so thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Hello. Good morning.
How are you?
My name is Madeline Marone, and I live at 27 Churchill Street. Firstly, I would like to address that my grandmother, Carolyn Richmond, served on the RTM, so I understand how difficult it is to be on a board like this and to come home at 11:30 at night, and I would stay with my grandmother and I would see her being tired and working really hard all the time. But I want to address the education budget, and I want to say that I understand you have to make cuts. I'm not asking you not to. I'm just asking you to consider the language programs that you put first on the education budget to make cuts to. And I'd like to address the French program, which I have studied under for 5 years in the town of Fairfield. And I've been waiting for 5 years to take advanced placement French, which, although it doesn't have a large following, people that take it are very passionate about it. And I ask that you please don't cut this program because it's really important to me. I also ask that you don't combine it with French 60 because the students that take that class are not passionate about French, and you'll be putting students that take a language just to finish up before college with students that want to live in France or go to France or travel or study. And I also ask that you consider, when making language cuts, languages that are the most popular and the languages that are the least popular. I also ask that you consider other advanced placement classes, such as American Studies, which is a very small class, and I'm taking it now. It's U.S. history combined with English, but it is a magnificent course. And just think about these before you make cuts that are really important classes to individuals. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. By the way, thank you for coming before us. It's not easy to get up and speak in front of this large a group of people. You're lucky we didn't ask you to do it in French. Mr. Dwyer, I hope you were taking notes. Thank you for your comments. This board, just so that we're aware, we would not make specific recommendations on if there was a reduction or an adjustment to the Board of Education budget. That would fall under the Board of Education decision when they discuss that budget. But thank you so much for your comments, and I'm sure they'll be taken into consideration. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Seguenza, and I'm also here in support of the education budget. I moved to Fairfield. I'm a Fairfield resident. I moved to Fairfield specifically for the school system. I have two young ladies here who are part of the fourth grade orchestra, and they have benefited so much from it. This is my daughter Isadora and her friend Brooke. They enjoy it. I wanted to say that it's a wonderful opportunity for my daughter. She is going to audition for pre-college at Juilliard. I'm saying this because I'm bragging, yes, but I'm also saying it because I don't think she would have had that opportunity had it not been for the music program and the orchestra program. Is it okay if they just say a few things?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So my name's Isadora, and sometimes me and Brooke, we go along to the third grade classrooms and we say, it's so awesome being in fourth grade orchestra. Once you get there, it's like you're free and you could play some music and it's just like wonderful. And like as soon as you're like in the beginning, you're a little slow, you know, you're not like that good. But soon you start to hatch like a bird, kind of like, and you start to like have feelings about music and start to love it and just.
Okay, I think
they got it.
Do you want to say something?
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Veronica Monahan. I'm a realtor and a homeowner, and I've lived in Fairfield for the last 15 years. I live at 635 Galloping Hill Road. Property taxes that are rising are causing our home values to decline. There's a direct correlation. We are losing our first-time buyers to local towns like Trumbull. We're losing our first-time buyers to towns like Westport in the multi-million-dollar range. They cite the Westport schools as higher rated, the lower property taxes, and Longshore, which also has a pool and other facilities, as the main reason for their decision to choose Westport over Fairfield. While that may not seem like, you know, a pity party for anybody, it dramatically affects our conveyance taxes in town, and it dramatically affects the amount of money people are spending in town. So it affects all of us. Additionally, our high-end homes are languishing on the market, with buyers continuously citing the already high property taxes, the reason they're not being purchased. Young families are not trading up into larger homes, and families with college-age students are trying to sell their homes and move away from town. We talk about the services that our town provides. Most people chose Fairfield for the area beaches, for the top schools, and for the quality of life. It was a very simple town 15, 16 years ago when I first bought here. It's now too expensive to own a home in Fairfield, and we need to stop the spending and lower our taxes. Don't raise them, start lowering them. Thank you for your time.
Excuse me.
As I mentioned, we're going to get a lot of time with clacking and all that. All sides of the issue. Sorry about that.
I'll try to make it short. Sorry. My name is Walter Byrne. I live at 99 Parkwood Road here. First of all, a comment on the education budget, and a very terse one. It's our kids, it's the future. Period. If you don't invest in that, what are you going to invest in? The second thing is consider, when you look at the town budget, consider departments that might be privatized. And I realize that brings up all kinds of images, but the town has already privatized one park, and from a financial point of view, I believe it's very successful. They've privatized Gould Manor Park. A private corporation is now in charge of the maintenance and the upkeep, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have any numbers, but if the town is not doing that, then that has to result in some kind of savings. So if you look at the principle of maintaining services but outsourcing it, maybe that's something to look at. I mean, maybe there are other things that Parks and Rec shouldn't be doing, or maybe they should be doing it, but part of it should be privatized. So the Parks and Rec budget comes down and you shift the responsibility over to a private corporation. Just a thought.
Thank you very much.
Matthew Hutzman, 317 Pansy Road. Unlike some people here, I can't claim to live in Fairfield my whole life. Me and my family chose to live in Fairfield because of the schools and the opportunities afforded. We've decided to plant our flag in Fairfield. I challenge anyone that I will be in this town probably a lot longer than some of the people in this room, and I'm concerned about the future of this town. You know, there's a word for a town that has low taxes and low services. It's called Alabama and Mississippi and places like that. If you want to live, hey, I'm talking here. If you want to live in a town like that, I suggest you move there and go somewhere else, because I am concerned about the future of this town. I think I've heard a lot of people saying the taxes are too high. I'm leaving in 2 years. Well, then leave now, and you shouldn't be involved in this argument, in this discussion. No, that is the truth.
Keep it.
All right, I'll keep it calm. But people, I'm concerned about people who are willing to risk my children's future in education because their children have already gone through the system, and they're not concerned about the schools anymore. They're not concerned with class sizes. And I mean, to discuss reducing class sizes for K through 2, the smallest, the 5-year-olds in the school, it's disgraceful to even talk like that. And I know you could say, well, it's just a number, we don't control that directly. What do you think's going to happen if $5 million gets cut from the budget? You think, it's going to be irrelevancy, it's going to be teachers and direct student time and face time with our students, things that matter directly, things that getting into college. Those are going to be the issues that come. And, I'm not concerned about, someone who has a Harbor Road address talking about affordability issues. That's disgraceful. Thank you.
One of the things that when you have a public setting and you allow comments, and this isn't just directly to what was just said, but you make generalizations, and it's very easy to categorize things. And when you look at it from our perspective, there's a lot of different points of view, and all of them are valid. And when you start looking into why somebody's saying something, or what address they live at, or why they might have the opinion, that's a very dangerous and slippery slope to go down. And I think we need to keep it at a level where it's not saying you do this because you're at this stage in your life or you're at this stage in life. And by the way, that goes both ways, right? It goes both ways. You hear that from some people saying that about the parents in the town. And you hear that about other people saying that about the seniors in the town. The reality is that doesn't add to the public discourse. It doesn't help make Fairfield what's Fairfield. It actually kind of detracts from it. And we get a lot of emails, and there's a lot of conversations like that via email, because it's easy to do it from behind a computer. So I think we just need to make sure we keep the level of discourse above the personal and talk about the actual facts. And I think if we do that, we can have a conversation that benefits the town. And that's my own perspective on it. And I would ask everybody to try to do that as we get up and speak about it. These are very emotional issues. But we need to keep it at that level. So thank you.
I'm Ann Estelle in 494 Pequot Court in Southport. I will be brief. I have 2 questions. One, why have our taxes, I have lived here since 1967, why have our taxes never gone down in good or bad times? That is a question to be asked. Because in good times you have a lot of revenue, our taxes never have gone down. They always seem to get up. That is question number 1. And that has something to do how the town is run. Number two, I would like for you, the homeowners, I'm too a realtor, to understand that with each increase of taxes, the value of your home goes down because similar towns, Westport, Darien, Greenwich, New Canaan, their taxes are 20, 30, and 50% below our taxes. So we have a hard time convincing buyers to purchase in Fairfield if you have the taxes here on a house 10,000 and it is 5,000 in a different town. Where would you buy? And the services in those towns are superb. So if we keep going on this road, remember Bridgeport had that problem many, many years ago. We are very well on the same road. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Robin Strong from 254 Cedar Road. Thank you very much for all your hard work, and thank you, fellow neighbors and Fairfielders, for your enthusiasm on this current budget. I would just like to make a comment very briefly, as two people have already pointed out, that increased property taxes are just going to squash any sort of real estate recovery that we are just starting to see in this country. And yes, granted, we're a very, very wealthy county, and we are a very privileged town, as are Westport, Darien, et cetera. However, I really think that we all have to look at the fact that the cost of living cannot keep increasing the way it is. Middle class, upper middle class, I don't care what category you fall in. It is our responsibility as town citizens, as well as our leaders, to try to address these issues so that we can maintain our property values. This is the biggest asset most of us own, we have. And when you go to expect, I live in a tiny house in Southport, tiny, and my taxes are breathtakingly high. And it's not an improved house, it's not fancy, and I can't afford to put an addition on it, the taxes, the fees. So I just ask that we really try to look at really cutting even this, hopefully 4.5, even down a little bit more. Thank you very much, and again, thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Virginia Sanford, 1831 Hillside Road. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
If you are not going to watch it, how about Chicago, that's going bankrupt, and they're closing 58 schools? I'm not saying that you reduce the education, but you have got to reduce the price of administration, both the school and the town. And it is the first selectman's job, and maybe the Board of Finance, to pick the departments that should be cut, because you cannot leave it up to the RTM line to line. It's not very efficient. Our government is not run efficiently. Other towns have, I'm not going to repeat, have better schools and lower taxes. And what you are doing is you are killing the golden goose. And when there's none of us left, where are you going to get your tax money from? You have taxed us out of existence. Just one more thing. I cause you no problems. I'm not an old woman. I have built 2 houses, run a business. I know how to live on a budget. I cause you no problems. I have no children. I have a septic tank. I recycle. But you punish me. I've lived here. I like my house, and I have friends. This is all age limits that want to stay here, but you have absolutely taxed us out of existence. You have raised my taxes 100% in 5 years. Thank you. I would hope that not only you lower your mill rate. The whole thing is outrageous. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is John Corin, and I do live on 968 Harbor Road. Three fallacies. Three fallacies. I will retire in this town, and I want to stay in this town. I've been in the town for 25 years, and I'm not moving to Alabama. I want to retire here, and I want to keep my home. There are other people here who would like to do the same thing. Another fallacy is that I've lived in other districts in the country, and I will tell you that throwing money at education does not make for a better education system. Okay? I will tell you also that higher taxes on our homes create for lower homes, lower home prices. It is unequivocally not arguable. Towns that have a higher tax basis on their homeowners result in lower estate prices, period. We must look, when we're looking at budgets for our town, at a competitive environment around us. We should pick a town and say, okay, is it as homogeneous as we are? Do they offer the same services? And if you take a look at Westport, similar town, lower taxes, and I would argue an equal or better education system. I'd like you to suggest that you keep the increases to the cost of living. All of us must live within a budget. I live within a budget. I assume that you do too. Keep it within that budget. And you know what? If you cannot afford something, you just can't have it. Thank you.
My name is Arlo Stokes. I live at 37 Christmas Tree Lane in Southport. I've lived in Southport for over 40 years. I grew up in Greenwich. I know what it's like to live in Greenwich. I chose Fairfield to live in because at that particular point in time in our lives we had little money and the taxes were reasonable and the price of our home was reasonable. That's not the case today. My family, who lived on 4 acres in back Greenwich, paid half the taxes that I lived on half an acre of land in Southport. And the services in Greenwich are unparalleled. Today, I don't think there's a town that can compare to the services that they provide. Look at their parks and recreation. Look at their public works department. Every time you drive through a roundabout in Greenwich, the tulips are popping up. And the town pays for this. I think part of our problem here in Fairfield is we have responded to a growing population of young families who need children educated, but we haven't properly planned for them. And we're not properly planning for them for the future. We're just raising taxes. And as Veronica Monahan and Ann Estelle said, we will become like a very familiar town just over our border. High taxes, big, beautiful homes that go empty or have to be bought by a university or some outside entity to keep them intact. I don't think this is what we want. And I'd like to ask the first selectman, when he wrote in the Fairfield Citizen, he refers to these increases. This increase is not due to lots of new programs being initiated. It is really paying for increases in the services and programs we already provide. Towards the end of that op-ed piece, he says, since we really didn't add services, this discussion is about what services we now will have to cut. My question is, one time he says we're increasing services, which makes everybody happy who have children in school. The next minute he's talking about having to cut services that he hasn't increased. So I don't understand that. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Jeremy Frost. I live at 1000 Harbor Road in Southport, and I really just want to echo and support the last few comments that were made and add one other thing. I recognize the difficulties of having to pay for pensions, insurance, things that go up. And I see that the towns around us are managing to keep their increases down to 2.5% to 3%. I would think or hope that might take care of what's going on that needs to increase and has to increase. I ask the town to try and keep the budget, aside from those increases which are mandatory, to a bare minimum. If anything, I'd like to see them go the other way, because I do believe the snowball effect of increased taxes and lowered property values will only drive us in the direction that my predecessor mentioned in terms of a town to our north. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Mary Hogue, 165 Stonewall Lane. I moved here 16 years ago with my husband's grandmother, who lived with us for a few years till she passed away. I'm rushing off after this to go help take care of my mother, who's in assisted living. I understand what it takes to be an elderly person and all the problems related to it, not just economic. I moved here 16 years ago. My house in value has increased considerably, as have my taxes. I moved here for education, as other people have. I also moved here for the beaches and all the other facilities. This is a long-term problem. I don't think this is something that we can fix quickly, and I think we have to think of all the reasons that we did move here. And I get confused when I hear people say the services are a very important part of Fairfield, but cut taxes is just no matter what. Well, that does mean that it will be a detriment to those services, whether it's education or recreation or any other health and safety services. So I think it's really important that we have all of the items that we need to think about figured out and understand that this time frame has to be fairly substantial, because it was a fairly substantial time frame that got us here. And I don't want to pay any higher taxes than anybody else, but I also, like everyone else, moved here and stay here for the services. So I applaud you and all the work that you have to do, and I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Susie Filipowicz. I live at 599 Old Mill Road. I have 3 children that I've almost finished put through the Fairfield Public Schools, and I'm proud to say that I am happy they've earned an education here. I support the town budget. I support the services provided in Fairfield, and I strongly support the Board of Ed budget as submitted, and specifically I support the music education in this town. I'd like to point out a few things that help our students who are involved in music programs. Music is a 21st century thinking and always has been. The highest levels of education had the highest percentages of people who had been involved in music programs, 88% according to a Gallup poll. Correlation between length of music participation and influence upon success is 92%. SAT scores for students participating in music were on average 57 points higher for verbal and 43 points higher for math. This is the College Board 2006. Analysis of U.S. Department of Education database, where 25,000 students over a 10-year period of time revealed that music students tested higher in SATs and reading proficiency than non-music students. Districts with quality music programs, such as our town, Fairfield, scored 22% higher in English and 20% higher in math on all mandated standardized testing. And nearly 100% of winners in the Siemens Westinghouse Math, Science, and Technology competition play one or more musical instruments. So I do support the town, and most specifically the music education. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Herb Limecooler, 315 Acorn Lane. Thanks again for your service. Really appreciate it. I know we all do. I just want to reinforce the comments that have been made previously. I think we do have a serious affordability problem, and I think that town spending, accumulated town spending over many years, really presents a serious threat to the collective property values and to Fairfield's future. I think we need to address every element of town spending. I think we really need to start we need to start with the bottom line, which is the total amount of spending, and ensure that that level of spending is no more than current, or at worst increases by no more than the amount of inflation. I think we tend to treat town spending and the resulting mill rate as the sum of many necessities, many niceties that we all want to have for our town, we think are important to the quality of life that we have here. But I think just like a family or a responsible business, we need instead to start with a sustainable spending level, one that we can afford as a town, and calculate backwards to determine our greatest priorities. That's the level of spending. That's the level of spending that we can afford, and that's the level of spending that we need to drive toward. Thanks very much. I appreciate your help. I also want to commend the work that Fairfield Taxpayer has done in terms of pointing out a lot of the issues. I think they've done a great job in terms of benchmarking where we stand as a town, benchmarking our historical spending, and have provided valuable service in terms of bringing a greater awareness of where we are as a town. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is David Thornton, and I'm not used to public speaking. Plus, I'm going to be speaking for 3 people who are not here because they're dead, but their voices should be heard. 1146 Valley Road. It is John Sullivan, who people may remember was a selectman. I worked for him as a young man. I got to see him a little bit in action. James Eldridge, second selectman for many years. Hard-working man like you people. And during their tenure, they kept taxes down. The last person I'm going to speak for is a Fairfielder, Robert Penn Warren. He won a Pulitzer Prize, lived in Fairfield, all the King's men, plus my own voice. This is crazy. There's craziness in Fairfield. The taxes go high. Yes, we got to support services. But when I went to school and learned and probably took one poli-sci class, bureaucracy grows. It's a self-living organism, and they want to get more. You know, it's an unfortunate necessity. I think we're kind of going crazy, not to pick out Public Works, not to pick out the Board of Education, but enough already. None of this happened under previous administrations, Mr. Sullivan, Eldridge, but now it has become chronic. Getting a little nervous here speaking, but I will leave you with a great quote. Robert Penn Warren lived in Fairfield. All the King's men. And his quote was, government, they're trying to get their front feet in the trowel. That's kind of harsh, but there's an essence of truth in that. Education is an industry. Public Works, all these other things are an industry. Let's tone it down a little bit. We're taxpayers, we're stockholders in this great noble experiment. I hope you guys look at it from that perspective, because the previous people who were dead had that perspective and were successful. Upset. Okay.
Suzanne Miska, 123 Rygate Road. I don't envy your position. What a difference a year makes. Last year I sat here and there were 4 people, so it's so nice to have such a warm surrounding. But truth be said, it's not services, it's not education, it's 0.63 is the programs on the education budget. Ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Finance, it's your drivers. It is healthcare, it is pension, it's salaries. To read in the paper that we are discussing these ideals at contractual times when they're presented in front of boards to be passed is a disalarming situation as a taxpayer. I'm the 4th generation of my family to buy a house in Fairfield. The fact that we have 401 type programs available on an optional basis. I don't know who's going to opt in when on the other side of the equation is a 70 to 80% guarantee of salary on the pension side, plus a 2 to 3% inflation cost. At some point, what I am asking is that the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, the RTM, and the Board of Education come together. It is time that these boards set a financial statement going forward for the town on healthcare and on pension. The sustainability of what's been provided to the people who are under the employ of the town, we can't sustain that going forward. In no means am I demeaning the value that these people give in service to our town. However, we can't continue to go down this road, because what happens is we keep looking at widgets, wheelbarrows, hoses, and programs. You've already done those. The kids in the last 3 years, program-wise, whatever everyone thinks about AP courses and whatever, okay, is we haven't funded. So please, I ask you going forward to come together as a town, and instead of just being one budget, let's do one healthcare, one pension, one everything, so that we can sustain the future of our town.
Good morning. My name is Lois Lehman at 90 South Pine Creek Road, and I join my realtor friends Anna Stell and Veronica Monahan in assuring you all that as taxes go up, the price you can sell your house for will go down, because we see on a weekly basis that we have many people wanting to sell, but not as many as we would like who are willing to buy. We have to compete with other municipalities and the services they offer, and they look at the cost of a house as a package, the price of the house, and the taxes. At the same time, we see a great shortage of housing for smaller households in Fairfield. There's nowhere for people with a couple of family members to go to. Other municipalities look at different ways of raising their revenue base rather than continuing to raise property taxes. Every time a project comes around that would require a zoning change so that we can have a multifamily unit or an apartment house, it seems to run into roadblocks and difficulties. Could we not look more favorably on projects that would provide the housing we need so much, the apartments, the condos, the smaller maintenance-free units, that would provide us with an increase in our town revenues while avoiding raising taxes on single-family homes? Thank you.
So if you can pause just for a second, if I can. So we're at about, if I'm reading the clock correctly, about 10:40. So we're about a little over an hour into this. We've got about another hour to go. I just wanted, we're about a 2 hour, maybe 2 hour and some change for this. I just want to let everybody know that it's a public service announcement. So feel free, sir.
Hello, my name is Greg DiMaggio. I live on 490 Hulse Farm Road in Southport. I'm a person who recently purchased there, and I've been living in Fairfield for 10 years, so I do have 2 properties in town, and I did elect to stay in town. And I really think this is a great place to live, but I have to say, with the idea of rising our property taxes, I don't think we're looking at a big picture here. Real unemployment is not 7 and 8%. Real unemployment is probably about 15% nationwide. So there are a lot of people that are struggling. Our commuting costs have gone up, and this is a very big commuter town. If you got a 2 or 3% raise a few years ago, you're probably making less money or pocketing less money. And for a lot of young families in town, guess what? The cost of college is only going up. So for us to have to keep paying more and more property taxes after state taxes have gone up, federal taxes have gone up, it's just getting to the point where, you know, how much of your paycheck are you really taking home? So I think this is something else to consider. And if our home is our biggest asset, I think as most people here it is, what's that going to happen when our biggest asset starts declining? I think we'd have to try to find a new and creative way in town to maybe bring in revenue rather than tax the people of town in order to, and rather than taxing people, we'd have to actually find a new creative way to bring in new revenue. So if the board could get together and figure out a way we could make money in this town rather than tax people, it'd probably benefit everyone in the room. Thank you.
My name is Liz Shepard. I live at 71 Spruce Street in Southport, and I've been a resident of Southport on and off for almost 50 years. I did do a stint of 8 years in Greenwich. I certainly understand the services and the lower taxes there. And we've heard a lot about Greenwich and a lot about Westport today. The reason their taxes are lower is they have a very high corporate tax basis. What are we doing to look at attracting and retaining corporations so we can lower the burden on the residents? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Julianne Sterling. I live at 766 Old Post Road. We've lived in Fairfield for 20 years. It's a wonderful town and has wonderful services, beaches, educational opportunities. Its taxes have always been high in comparison to neighboring towns like Westport, Darien, or Greenwich, and we accepted that. However, 2 years ago, while our property values went down 30%, our taxes at 766 Old Post Road went up 25%. I don't even want to tell you that because then you'd never want to buy my house. Shocked, we were told this was due to commitments by our elected officials in previous years, and there was nothing we could do about it. Then last year, with an increase in the budget of approximately 4.5%, our taxes jumped another 8%. So in 2 years, we had 2 outrageous tax increases. I looked over our taxes over the last few years, and until that 25% jump, I tell you, I never really paid much attention. But in the 20 years we've lived here, our taxes have gone up 200%. We can't afford that. I understand that some of you at the same time had no tax increases, which really adds insult to injury. With another budget increases, our tax will go up again. I understand why no one wants cuts. I understand the value of education. But our home purchased in Darien, Greenwich, or Westport, the very same price, our taxes would be about 50% of what they are here. It's intolerable. And if we can't afford the bad judgment, the bad commitments that were made in the past, the time is now to do something about it. We can't just pass on that to the taxpayers who can't afford it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Kathy Coyle, 84 Sherwood Farm Road. Thank you very much. I know this is very difficult and a long, arduous task for you, but I do appreciate it. Now, we are all here concerned about increased taxes, and there are many reasons for this issue. One major problem that's resulting in higher taxes is that we have reduced funding from federal and state levels. And one of the main reasons we have reduced funding is because both levels of government are struggling with pensions and health care. It is no surprise that Fairfield is struggling with the same issues. Our main cost drivers, at least on the education side, are health care and pensions. So why are we looking to cut programs? Currently, if there is a cut to the education budget, it would not come from pensions and health care. There might be a reduction in health care if we farm it out to a different company. But some of these reductions in programs would be what set our school system apart. There would be a reduction in AP classes. There would be a reduction in world languages. There would be essentially a high school tax where you would have to pay to participate in anything. Now, all of these things, the end game of our school system is to send our kids to the very best colleges that we can, or if it's not college, to prepare them to be very productive citizens. If we cut those things, we're cutting the legs out of our education system, but we're really still not addressing the main cost drivers. As it's been stated before, our programs and services this year in this budget have increased less than 1%, so why do we look, if we cut the education budget, that's where it's coming from. We really need to look at our contractual obligations. We need to look at our pensions and our health care. There are so many businesses that their industries have gone under because of pensions. And I don't understand why, if we pass on, if we cut programs and not cost drivers, what we will be giving our students is a substandard education and a tax bill that they cannot hope to pay. We really can't afford these obligations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, you just lift it up there. Hi, guys. John Donovan, 164 Tainter Drive. At different times I've thought, politics might be fun. And with all this, I've kind of looked at what you guys do, Chairman Dwyer, the first selectman. Oh my God, I would never want to do it. It seems like hell. But with that, commend you all. At the same time, the first budget was 6.8. Saw a press release yesterday, 4.8. To quote the famous poet from New Jersey, John Bon Jovi, you're halfway there. Get to the 2, get to inflation. Now, I'm a part of Fairfield taxpayers. We've been going and looking into this whole thing. And I have 3 kids in the public education system. So to counter a lot of the arguments, I really care about the public education system. I think it's a great thing. I'm a product of the public education system. But also, let's speak frankly here. You can't improve what you can't measure. Chairman Dwyer, as I sent to you before, and I mean, elected, so I assume I can mention something. Greenwich has great success measures. You can go and see how is that school doing. And when you look at Fairfield, you know, we'll post this on the website later today. We're in the bottom third of DRG A and DRG B. Now, hey, that's okay, right? We're in with DRG B, that's good. You can go and look at the numbers. If you look at what Dr. Title presents, he says, hey, we're 20 to 25 points above state average. I'll buy that whole argument. But our costs are in the top third. So if our costs are in the top third, I think we should expect performance in that top third. And if they're not in the top third, then we should be able to pay less. And as we've looked into the budget and everything else, as you guys all know, there are places to cut that budget. And for all the people who say, let's just put more money into education, there's some great studies out there that show you don't get those results. Vermont spends one heck of a lot more than Massachusetts, but they get worse results. So if we want to do that, let's first put in place success measures for the education system. Let's define what we want. Let's define the scores, and then pay for that to get there. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Charlotte Bartol, and I live at 1121 Sasko Hill Road. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for all the hard work and time that you put into this budget. I have lived in Fairfield for over 11 years. While I did not grow up here, I have really come to enjoy and appreciate my life in Fairfield. My husband Perry grew up here, and now our 2 children are doing the same, and my hope is that we can continue to keep our children here. This wonderful town is becoming unaffordable with all the tax increases. I have learned from my own experience in seeing my own taxes increase, and also through the Fairfield Taxpayers Group. They have done a really good and factual job of highlighting our town's steady increase of spending, and as a result, our annual increases in taxes. It needs to stop, and we just can't afford them anymore. A few facts about our family. Our family's income has decreased over the past 5 years, and we have made cuts in our family budget to reflect that income decline. Yet each year, as we come up with our own family budget, we have to cut it again because of the increases in our property taxes. It's so frustrating. I'm making all the cuts, but our town isn't. I'm here today to ask that you do not approve the proposed budget and the tax increases. I encourage you to look at options to reduce spending, reduce services, so that for the first time in a long time, there are no tax increases. We, the people of Fairfield, need a break, a financial break from the stress that our town's taxes are causing all of us. Most of us do not expect the same level of service and are willing to trade some amenities for no tax increases. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Lisa Havey. I live at 216 Longview Avenue, and I wear several hats in town. I am a mom, I'm an unemployed member of society, and I'm a wife and a mother of sports kids and music kids and extra activity kids, and also one of my hats is I am currently the president of Fairfield County, or not counties, oh, please, that'd be terrible. The town of Fairfield's PTA Council. We represent over 9,500 members of our community. I see pens going down to paper. We have an active membership. We have an active role in our schools. PTAs contribute over hundreds of thousands of dollars into our school system. We're supposed to be advocates for our kids, but we've turned into ATMs and debit machines for hardware and other items. It's not the intent of a PTA. PTA has voted to support, the council has voted to support rigorous education, small classroom sizes as already set up in contracts.
safe buildings. We don't really have safe buildings. There's a lot of poo-poo and pa-pa about what's going on in our buildings. But it's so sad to say that we have some really, really sick kids in this school system. And some of them haven't made it. I'm not saying it's the schools, but I think we owe it to our schools and our town buildings to be safe. Just town buildings, too. I'm very nervous, so I apologize.
Okay.
I'm used to speaking to a smaller group in a 2-minute timeline, so I had some things written down, but I should have brought them with me. So I apologize. The school's facing state mandates that are going to be extremely expensive, and they're going to take away from classroom time. Please be considerate of that, and please be considerate that it's not just what's going on in this town, it's coming down from the state. I urge everybody to get actual facts, not applied information. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Morning. Morning. Dick Cook, 1123 Sasko Hill Road. A couple of points that I think are critical for us to start to address. Corporate America nearly went out of business. They had to change their ways. They had to change their pension plans. I'm going to guess that most people in this room's pension plans are either non-existent or they had to create their own. It's time we look at our public system and put it on the same steps and the same focus that we are. I mean, we're now looking at solutions to cut back our taxes, but we need to do this strategically and fairly. But what we're looking at now is a system that has two parts: the private sector, where we're out there trying to build our own future, and the public sector, which we're giving them pensions to take care of their future. We got to get on the same level playing field. I think that's critical. And I know it's true across the country in all governments, but it's a critical area for us to survive to go there. We've lost ours. We're paying more taxes to support this. That has to change. Other things that we seriously need to look at, I believe, is we have to look at privatization. Countries around the world that found themselves in tremendous difficulties, how did they succeed and get out of that? Emerging market countries. They privatized their systems. We have an opportunity now to look at our different systems, whether it's town services across the board, but let's start in a few places and take a look at this and put it in a competitive situation so that we can then get value for our dollars as opposed to just paying more because somebody needs a raise. But we're not competitive. We're not putting our people in a situation to say, hey, give us a good job and do a good job. We don't have that. You know, now we just have, we're paid to do this. That's it. Thank you.
My name is Heather Lalonde. I live at 2680 Congress Street. I hadn't planned to speak, but I wanted to point out that I am a teacher, a union member with the Stanford Public School System. I just want to say that, that this forum, I understand, is to address tax increases. As a homeowner, I've been here since 1982, and we moved here because the taxes were low. They have increased hugely, and at this point, we are very much thinking that we cannot afford to retire here, and we are looking to move elsewhere. Nevertheless, Fairfield, I brought my children up here. I love the town. It's a beautiful town, and it is a sick town. One of the things that I heard a lot of people talking about is special interest groups lobbying to keep their programs, whether it's education or public works and recreation. Another gentleman spoke about how we need to look at our overall government with best practices, how we can make decisions in the long term and not year to year and reacting to, we have this in the budget, what are we going to cut, how are we going to cover it, everything's going up, we got to raise our taxes. Why do we have to raise our taxes? Well, one of the things that we were told at the beginning of this meeting is that this is not the forum to discuss pensions and union negotiations. However, as a member of a union, I am very well versed with the idea that unions fight like dogs to keep and get whatever they can for their union members. As a public school teacher, the way our pension works, you get the average of your last 3 years, and it's 60%. You cannot pad it with overtime. So it is really pretty much the last 3 years. I was reading this morning the new negotiations for the police department that just was passed retroactively, and they went from the last year pay, however that is figured, from 80% to 70%. I say to you that this is very, very untenable for us going forward. It's too much money. The other thing I wanted to say, and I know that this sounds, it's really hard to attract good administrators, but years ago we hired a superintendent, and the superintendent was among the highest paid superintendents in the country. Did a great job. When she retired, we hired a new superintendent. A superintendent did not have the same amount of experience, and yet that person started at a salary higher than the outgoing superintendent. I think you have to look at how you make these decisions going forward. Thank you.
So give me 1 minute. I just want to clarify a couple points. Thank you for the comments. It's been mentioned a couple times about the pensions and the ongoing obligations. And if I misled anyone at the beginning of the meeting, my apologies. This is definitely the forum for you to make comments regarding that if you so choose. I'm not trying to limit someone from making comments regarding those issues because they are drivers of our budget. However, what I was saying was this board is not in a position to do anything about that. We are not part of those negotiations. Those are handled by separate branches of the government, but we are required to fund those contracts by law. So I just want to point that out because I don't want anyone thinking that they cannot speak to those issues should you so choose. But I did want you to better understand our role within the entire process of that. One other point of clarification, and I do this only because this comes out a lot, particularly when the top 20 earners in town and things like that are published in our local press. Most, if not all, of our contracts do not pay pension based on overtime. It's based on salary. So that was something that was done years ago by the Board of Selectmen, or the first selectman back then, as well as the RTM. So they're not paid on the overtime. They are paid on their straight salary. I just wanted to clarify those items because there tends to be some confusion on those items in the public conversation. So thank you. And sir, back to you.
My name is Sean Keller. I live at 246 Old South Road. I've grown up in Fairfield, went through the public schools in Fairfield, and 4 years ago, my family and I moved back to Fairfield so that we could raise our family here. As everyone has said, it's a wonderful community. We moved here primarily for the schools and the amenities, and I accept that. What I cannot accept, however, are the increasing property taxes. In 4 years since we have been back, my property taxes have increased 25%, and I'm looking at another potential 5%. And it's getting to the point where we have to seriously consider whether we can actually afford to stay in the town. And I agree that it's always a trade-off between what we can and cannot do, but I support the comments that have been made before that you have to tackle your fundamental underlying drivers of the budget, which quite frankly are not the individual programs at the Board of Education. They've been laid out quite plainly by other people where it comes to health care costs and pension costs. And on that basis, that's all I would like to say. So thank you.
Courtney Bradley, 443 South Benson Road. My family moved here 3 years ago, attracted, as many others, by the strong reputation in the schools, the beaches, and believe it or not, the affordability of the taxes relative to the town of New Jersey where we left. I feel now like I am in a deja vu. We lived in New Jersey for 7.5 years, and over that time period, our taxes basically doubled. Many young families lived in the neighborhood where we did, coming out from Brooklyn, New York,
very similar to a situation here. And the schools had a good reputation. I urge you not to deal with the tax situation at the expense of the education programs in Fairfield. Each year, the reputation of the school district that we left went down. Cuts were made for things that people considered ancillary, but really do, like languages and music, that really do affect the performance of students and their ability to go to top-notch colleges. And people, family after family, most of the families that that our kids grew up with left. Fleeing is, I believe, the word, and the prices of the homes have declined sharply in that town. I can tell you from being in the classroom a lot at the school my children attend, things like increasing classroom size at the elementary school level are absurd. The children are already literally sitting on top of each other. There is no room. They are often in schools with poor air quality. I know that this situation cannot continue, and I saw it. I saw the number of young families who fled, and home prices decreased, and it was done at the expense largely of the schools, and I just don't want to see that same scenario happen here, because we really love Fairfield. Thank you.
Morning, my name is Doug Stevenson. I live at 1001 Gunston Road. A lot of speakers before me made some great points, so I won't touch on that, but the drivers are key. I have worked in municipal finance for the better part of 30 years. So as part of my job, I study every state in the union and every county within that state. And as a result of the financial crisis, I have studied them even more. The communities that are in insolvency, receivership, that are cutting back dramatically on services, their budgets were devoid of common sense and fiscal austerity. I submit to you, our budget is devoid of fiscal austerity and common sense, and I know how it ends. It ends very badly. You've got to study the cases that are out there. It ends very badly. The high-profile ones, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Detroit, Fallstown, Rhode Island, they're all out there. Talk to me offline, I'll give you dozens. You have to have austerity in the budget, or it's going to be bad for everyone. The federal government has a printing press. Town governments have taxpayers as their printing press. It's going to end badly for the federal government. It'll end badly here. Point one. Point two, my tax bill was $46,000, so I had had enough. I tried to appeal to the town. They rejected my appeal right offhand. I tried to talk to the town assessor, couldn't see me. So 5 days up in New Britain. A couple of things I learned in New Britain is the firm that the town paid to do the assessments, he didn't know whether he got paid $100,000 or $500,000. He didn't know. Somewhere between $250 and $500, he thinks. That's incredible to me. Transparency, transparency, transparency. Take out 2 pages, take out 10 pages in the town paper, line by line, what everything is. We have to see where things are at. Point two, the 17 years I've been here, I've coached youth sports for the better part of 10 years. I support all the local charities, all the local restaurants. I couldn't get 5 minutes with the assessor, but he spent 5 days in New Britain to challenge me. That's crazy. We are the taxpayers. You've got to deal with us. You can't be so off-putting like that. It's really offensive. And that's my point. I'm frustrated. It's going to end bad, and you've got to be transparent.
Hi, my name is Kevin Dillon. Many in this room know me better as Mr. Faith Dillon. Faith was on the RTM for 10 years, and I know the hard work that you all put in because I watched it with her for a decade.
State your address too, please.
120 Wakeman Lane, Southport. I went through the 300 pages of the budget last night, made a whole bunch of notes. I was going to stand up here and talk about each of the line items, the pensions, the retiree benefits, so on and so forth. I got up again about 3 o'clock this morning, couldn't sleep, went back to this package of numbers. But I'm not going to talk about numbers because this is This goes beyond numbers. This is personal. This is my home. My property taxes have quadrupled in 20 years. My home value has maybe not quite doubled. I can't afford it anymore. My home is where I've raised my kids. We moved in, my kids were 6, 4, and Ryan was about to be born. We have gone through birthdays, anniversaries, reunions. There are so many memories in this house. It's not the home. It's not the, I don't have special drywall or special hardwood floors. I have special memories that I don't want to leave. When you leave your home, you should leave it because you want to leave, because it's your decision. The decision's been taken out of my hands. I have to leave. And it breaks my heart that I have to do that. It's too late for me. I'm gone within the next couple of years. And I'll be driving out of that driveway, and I'll be crying like a baby. Thank you.
My name is Kathy Wyatt. I live at 289 Beach Road. Obviously, I'm a taxpayer in Fairfield, but I also support the education budget as it stands. I think it's really important to point out that the education budget is 4.68% higher than it was last year, 0.68%. 0.68% of that is programs. I know this has been mentioned by several people before me, but I just think it's really important when people talk about we can't throw money at the education system, we can't throw money at our students and expect them to do better just with money, that 0.68% of that is what's actually being spent this year on programs projected for our students. I think it's really important to think about that and to think about, as Ms. Miska pointed out earlier and a couple other people who I heard speak about the main drivers of the budget increases, the pensions and the health care. I think that is really important. But the other thing I want to point out is I think we're all on the same page here. We're all taxpayers. For one group to point to another group and say, you need to cut what you're getting, but I need to maintain what I have. And you need to take something away from this piece because I need to have what I have. I think that we are all in the same boat. And being antagonistic toward each other and thinking it should come from someone else's backyard is really not going to help move the ball forward at all. I think that an across-the-board look very carefully at all the different things that are driving these budget increases and tax increases is what we need as taxpayers. And I would hope, especially since Mr. Belito, you pointed out how fabulous and intelligent this board is. I have total faith in you that you'll be able to do this. I really do. I think that you'll be able to look at this carefully, systematically, and with an eye to all the different things that benefit this town, not to any one group or another, not to who claps the loudest or speaks the loudest. I think that's so important, and I really thank you for the work that you do. I know this volunteer work is unbelievably difficult. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, George Barrios, 88 Martingale Lane in Fairfield. Been here for about 6 years. Bought a house in Fairfield, have 3 girls in the system, in the public school system, so I'm a big consumer of services. Plan on being here for a lot longer, so I will continue to consume the services. And like everybody else, I like getting stuff. And when it seems free for a long time, I like getting even more stuff. Unfortunately, you get burdened by experience through life. And one of the things I've learned, being in the private sector, is spending can't grow faster than inflation, at least not for a long time. Inflation, I think, over the last 15 years, cumulatively in the country, 40%. In the town, over 100. Another 15 years like that, you end up in a bad place. You'll have more than a few hundred, you'll have thousands in here. I'm the CFO of a public company, so I get to sit tables like this and rooms like this and look friends and colleagues in the eye and say, we're going to cut your budget 10%. Your goals are higher. Do everything we can to support you, but that's what you got to deliver. And you know what I've learned is 9 times out of 10, they deliver. They're smart, they're energetic, they deliver. You know, there's an undercurrent there, the 1 time out of 10. If they don't deliver, then you end up finding people who can deliver. You know, in a public setting, I know it's different than a private setting, but in the public setting, you vote people out, and then you vote them in. So I think my advice is, and I look at you, and I don't know really the way government works, but I'm assuming the analog here is that you are the CFO of the town. Give your colleagues and your friends and our friends and neighbors an audacious goal. 10% reduction, but you have to deliver the same services. Forget the line items. 10% reduction, deliver the same services. Whether it's privatization, whatever it is, whether it's a unicard, I don't know. 10% reduction, deliver the same services. My guess is they will, because they're smart, they're energetic, they're passionate, they're not getting paid a lot, and they're doing what they do, so my guess is they will. If they don't, then we'll take care of, of that situation. We'll vote them out, and we'll vote somebody else in who will. So that's my advice. Good luck.
Good morning. Mike McGrath, 480 Jackman Avenue. I am here to speak in support of the school system. Our family moved here for the school system. That's the main reason. We love the beach too, but it was the school system that we came here for. I would certainly expect that you would do everything to contain costs. I know that you will. However, I would like to see all the programs in our school system maintained, even if it does result in some tax increase. It will certainly be difficult for our family, but I'm willing to go that route in order to make sure that my child and other children have the same things that children had last year or 5 years ago. As we go forward in time, children don't need less in terms of education. They need more. There's more and more to know. There are more and more demands. The workplace is getting more and more competitive. We don't need to provide less. The superintendent has created a lot of efficiencies during his tenure. I'm sure you've all seen his PowerPoint, where they're not throwing money around. I think they are using money wisely. I'm also a music educator in a nearby town, and I can speak specifically about music education. Our son is in the music programs here in town. We value them very much. When you cut music programs, you actually lose money. It ends up costing more. That's because the 2 little girls who spoke earlier today and spoke so enthusiastically about learning to play instruments, when they get to middle school and when they get to high school, they're in a class where an orchestra or band director might have 50 or even 100 students at a time. If you cut the programs, even at the elementary level, eventually the programs start to shrink in middle school and high school. Then you have those 50 to 100 kids who had one teacher, and now you've got to put them somewhere else, and it takes 3 or 4 teachers to do what one teacher was doing previously. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi. I'm John Levinson, and I live at 883 Harbor Road. And I'm happy to live on Harbor Road. I'm happy that I'm in the town of Fairfield. I chose to live here for a lot of different reasons. My wife and I looked at Westport, looked at a lot of places, but one of the diversity of people and the rich programs that we offer here in services. And I'm happy to be able to continue to afford it as far as I can tell. I am very concerned, however, about the affordability. My background is I was an analyst and an investor for many years, still am. I don't know how many times I've made projections, but it's in the thousands easily. Many times without much information, many times with a lot of information, some very large companies. And I think if you look out, instead of looking back at last year and deciding what you might want to bump up a little bit, at our budget, you have the recognition that we have a real problem. I think we are at a tipping point here. We now have, today, people in this room that measure hundreds instead of 5 last year. We have Fairfield taxpayer where there about 1,500 people that have joined since January, since the end of January. We have hundreds of emails that have been sent. And most of those, unlike was characterized before, are looking for cuts to maintain the affordability in the town. They're not after the Board of Ed budget per se. They're not after, town services in this area. They want cuts. We want relief because we have a problem of affordability. Worse yet, we're at the knee of a curve. As an earlier person spoke, health care, especially with the Affordable Health Care Act, is going to drive costs much, much higher. The Board of Finance understands this, and I think we need to take action by having a major change in attitude towards our spending and programs, a change in attitude to the benefits that we give people. Everyone who works for the town should have benefits on par with, not a significant premium to, what we, the taxpayers, the people paying their bills, get. It's as simple as that. And I know that's a difficult thing to do, but that has to be not only a goal, a near-term goal. And I would...
You're over the 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, I thank you for listening as long as you did. And
Thank you.
Bud Morton, 290 Sasko Hill Road. First of all, thank you for holding this public forum. Thank you for your public service. And thank you for all that the Board of Finance has done to improve the town's financial integrity by imposing discipline and transparency in the management of its capital spending, debt, and long-term liabilities. Board of Finance has done a great job. Since I cannot complete all my remarks in 2 minutes, I will send each of you a copy of my full statement, and I invite anyone else who is interested to go to the fairfieldtaxpayer.com website, where I hope they will post the full text. My conclusions are as follows. Everyone appreciates the ongoing efforts that have reduced the proposed tax increase from 6.4% to 4.8%, or from 3.2 times inflation to only 2.4 times inflation. However, tax increases higher than the inflation rate cannot continue. They are steadily eroding Fairfield's ability to remain a desirable and affordable community for all of its residents. They are squeezing our household budgets, they are hurting our property values, and forcing more and more of us to sell our homes and leave. The tax increase in fiscal 14 should not exceed 2%, the current rate of inflation, which is in line with what towns like Greenwich, Westport, Weston, and Trumbull have proposed. The average for those 4 towns right now, before their board's review, is 1.8%. For future years, 3 of my 7 recommendations, you got to get the others on the website. First, create a 5-year plan that will reverse the downward trend in Fairfield's affordability by holding future tax increases below the rate of inflation. Second, begin every future budget cycle, as we all do at home and at work, by first establishing how much we can afford to spend. Third, end every budget cycle with a clear explanation from every town body of why it considers the budget it approved to be affordable for the taxpayers. The Board of Finance was the one, when no one else had the political will to do so, that stepped up and stopped the town from kicking the long-term liabilities can down the road. Unfortunately, there is another big can that has become just as dangerous to the town's long-term financial well-being. That's the affordability can. If you guys aren't going to do it, who will? Thank you.
My name is Tim Ilfeld, 450 Hollydale Road. I'm a PTA delegate from Jennings, and I had some other comments until the CFO came up a few moments ago, and he made some very compelling points that I want to echo, because I'm one of the 10 that reports to a CFO. And guess what? He's right. You find a way. And I think he put it perfectly. You are, in my eyes, and I think the eyes of the community, the CFO of the town. And you have a very unique and important opportunity right now to demonstrate leadership that's lacking and has been lacking, to draw a line in the sand and say it stops. From a tax perspective, and also comments that were made, this is not about one department over another. It's about a willingness to say, look, here's what we can live within, and your jobs, and I hope you take the opportunity to do this, is to say, look, we can do this, we can't do that. Go back to the drawing board and do it again. It works, and it has been successful, and none of us want to see our town go the way of, some of these you hear about in other parts of the country. Appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Rob Walker. I live at 35 South Benson Common. My wife and I moved here about 19 years ago, and we chose Fairfield and all of Fairfield County because we felt it was a really good balance of affordability with services, and we've raised our 2 children here. When we first moved here, we both joined the steering committee for the Sandcastle Playground, and were instrumental in creating that, which I think was a great asset to the town. And we both believe in doing our part, and we love Fairfield. I'll be brief. I just want to say I'm here in support of the Fairfield taxpayer. I don't want to repeat all the positions that they have made. I just want to stress one point. You are our elected representatives. I would ask that, as such, that you would take the responsible and position to make the hard decisions to end these increases, because what happens, as we've seen historically, the increases just build. We've never seen taxes go down, and if this higher budget is passed, it's going to become the springboard for next year's and the one after that. So I just ask, please draw the line. Thank you.
Hi, Michelle Matola, 21 Surrey Lane in Fairfield. And our family didn't choose to move here for the schools. We chose to stay here for everything that's great about Fairfield. And I've watched these budget debates for years. And what I'm seeing this year is that we're having a very healthy debate about how to make government more efficient and more effective, et cetera. And that's a great debate to have. But the vote that needs to be cast in a couple of weeks is, what are we going to do next year? Next year, we can't change contracts that by law are already in place and are requiring us to pay salaries and pensions and benefits. We can't change the fact that a number of years ago, our town decided, for probably very good budget reasons, to be self-insured. The fact that we're self-insured from a healthcare perspective keeps our costs down year after year. But last year, unfortunately, we had a bad year. Okay? So we have a one-year driver in health that's forcing us to make some tough decisions here. We decided, very rightly, to provide senior tax relief. Well, that money has to come from somewhere. And so where can it come from? The only place it can come from is what we're not mandated to spend money on, which is what makes Fairfield great. It's our language arts programs, it's our music programs, it's our library services, it's our beaches, etc. So as we try to deal with this crisis next year, I really urge this board not to take significant steps that are going to damage the programs that make Fairfield great in order to get through next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Nancy Legary. I live at 245 Uncor Road in Fairfield. I probably don't have to worry about my snow plowing. I don't have to worry about my garbage removal because that's all done for me in the condominium that I live in. I personally feel condominiums are the way to go. I've lived in Fairfield over 50 years, and I've paid taxes all that time. My children grew up in this town, and they were educated in this town. I decided to stay in this town and retire in this town. Whether I can afford it for the next couple of years, I don't know. I really don't want to go to Alabama. I don't want to go to Mississippi. I don't want to go to Florida. I don't want to drive around in a golf cart. However, I would like to say that at one time Fairfield was a very affordable town. The taxes supported the amenities in town, not the other way around. Over the past years, the amenities have shrunk and taxes have continued to go up due to contracts, due to commitments. We need to bring everyone in line. We can't afford to pay CEO prices and benefits to heads of departments, etc. If other towns in our area can keep their taxes down, Fairfield should strive to do the same. And I would also ask you that there have been some wonderful, wonderful people that have spoken about ways to do this. These are men that are leading companies, they're working at corporations. Perhaps we should get a committee of these people and ask them to put together some sort of proposal or program for us, because you guys put in an awful lot of time and don't get paid. These guys get paid, but they have the expertise and they have the background to do it. Please use them. Use anyone in this room that you can, because if we don't, we are going to go the way of other towns, and I don't want to see that. And hopefully I'll see you next year.
Palmer Senator, 42 Pilgrim Lane. I listened very intently. I almost didn't come today. I have come all the other years, but I thought we talk, and the taxes still go up and up and up. I, too, am being forced to have to leave this town. I've said it, and every year I've heard from the time of Flato, one more year, just hang in one more year. Well, we've been hanging one more year, and my taxes, as with others, have gone up to over 225% in a very short period of time, in 13 years. Now, as far as the programs, as far as school goes, I feel that one of the things that we haven't even talked about today at all is Hurricane Sandy. We have been this town has been greatly affected, some worse than others. The hardship financially is real, and it's still going on. And yet, some of these budgets that come through are, to me, truly living in a bubble. And they're asking the people, the very people that they want to contribute to the education of their children, they're not caring what's happening in their lives. Many have left. They've made their comments and they've left. But they still demand from us. People are not moving here for retirement exactly because we can't afford to subsidize some of the, not the programs, the administrative costs. The President of the United States makes approximately $100,000 more than what our superintendent of schools does, as an example. As an example. I don't want to see one program cut for those children, but I think where they're addressing these problems are not in this environment. It is, I want to say, I hate to use the expression, sleeping with the enemy. It is their administration that's causing the problem. And I don't want to leave this town, and I don't think I should have to leave this town, and I think that we should not increase any of the budget this year or any.
Good morning. My name is Loretta J. I live at 116 Rolling Ridge Road. And first I'd like to thank you all for your service to our town. My family has lived in this town for 15 years. We chose Fairfield for its services. It's a wonderful community, and we're grateful for the services. I don't want to echo a lot of the comments that have already been made, but there was one comment that I've read about and heard about discussed that I do want to speak to, and that was one of the suggestions to increase classroom sizes. I believe we should keep the Board of Education budget intact, but particularly when I hear discussion about increasing classroom sizes, I feel that as short-sighted and penny-wise, pound-foolish. I think that when you increase classroom sizes, the children that need that particular attention from the teacher will not receive it. They will then be outsourced, whether it's out of district or just additional specialized services, which will in turn increase our special ed costs. The benefits of having classroom sizes that are manageable is those children can receive those specialized services in classroom. And keeping it short. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're almost at the end of our time here. Can I ask how many more speakers are there? I just want to make sure, just you guys. Okay, please, sir.
Hi, my name's Perry Tallman. I live on 208 Mill Hill Terrace. I went to school here 60 years ago. Oldfield School, Mill Plain School, Roger Ludlow, as did my other 7 brothers and sisters. So we're a product of the public school system. Got a good education. I don't think any of us would claim to be rocket scientists. I run a small technical service company. We work pretty much all over the world. I see, first of all, I see hospitals, engineering, so forth and so on. The people that are basically running the show there are most likely Asians, and I see what they spend on their education. their parents beat on them. They drive them. It's not. I mean, the education system we have here is great. Like I said, I've been here for a long time. My family's been here for a long time. But I also think we're very top-heavy. I think as far as the benefit packages, both for the schools and the public service group, you've said several times that this isn't this committee that changes them. Those are law. How do we change those laws? We've got 401ks where I work. We've got we offer health care. We pay 60%. They pay 30%. Those health costs increase. We pass that on. We can only afford so much. So living within your means is something I want to teach my kids. That's the #1 lesson of education. Living within your means is what's important to me, not throwing money and just spending money foolishly. So, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Cale Tallman, 3628 Reading Road. I live at 3628 Reading Road. I'm the 5th generation. My family's owned the property since 1845. My children are the 6th generation. If this spending increase keeps going on, we're going to be driven out. You know, you're killing 2nd, 3rd, 4th generation families. People that move here, put their kids through school, want all this, then they move out and leave the multiple generations with the tax burden. And I don't understand, the population has not grown significantly in the past 50 years in this town. It's been around 50 to 55,000. But yet all of the police department, the fire department have doubled in size. You know, I don't understand what, you know, all the town services keep doubling and doubling, yet the population hasn't grown significantly. And I don't understand why this has to keep going on. But it's got to stop, and something, you know, I'm a small business owner in town. We just can't spend and buy and do whatever we want and keep going up, you know, and it's basically what a lot of people have been saying. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rose Healy. I live in 325 Homeland Street for 12 years. I'm here today really want to take time to thank you for listening my speak. Again, first time to speak in the public, kind of nervous.
It's
but
okay.
Anyway, I will try to speak slowly. I'm going to tell you I wear 3 hats. My first hat is I am a parent. My daughter's in the school system, and she enjoyed every single day in her class, no matter it's liberal arts or music, instrument, or language. And I'm proud of what she's doing and with her teacher for so much effort and responsibility to nurture her and educate her. Every single program helped. For example, she just had a wonderful, wonderful experience at the town-wide choir festival yesterday. And we enjoyed it. And I see her grow on her face and satisfied and be happy in our school system. Second one is, of course, I'm a resident. I don't like to pay a whole lot of tax, but if for good reason, I'm willing to chip in to build our community and town, because that's for our children. And third, I am a teacher. I'm an educator for this town. I started my teaching from a business position, switched to join our town Board of Education, become a Chinese teacher since 2007. I'm the first one actually be proud of, first one to be a Mandarin Chinese teacher in this town. For all these years, I will address this issue. Everybody saying this is a, why see this list? The 4 language, world language always come on the first on the list to be cut. And I'm angry because I want to come here to tell you as parents, as residents, as leader, this program is worth every effort from your money, from parents, because I think this program is strong, is excellent. I've been attending a lot of workshops, see our surrounding town, Westport, Weston, Norwalk, everything. But this program, our program is strong. Speaking as a professional, and I see many, many children go to Princeton, go to Chicago, go everywhere. I can name all the children. They become very successful in their higher education. So therefore, I would say,
thank you.
Do not cut and think a way to fix the problem. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Candace Page. I live at 131 Hanford Drive. And I wasn't going to say anything today, but my mother grew up in Fairfield. I grew up in Fairfield. I went to Sherman School, then had to go to Osborne School, then was transferred to Grasmere when it was a school. And my heart breaks for what Mr. Dillon said. I mean, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to afford to stay here and continue my life here. I grew up here, and this is just so heartbreaking and what's going on. But what I wanted to say to you, I want to kind of take a different tact in that I also am a real estate attorney, and everything these real estate agents have said to you today is absolutely true. People are not moving to Fairfield, they're moving to Westport, where I never thought I'd ever say it, that the Westport taxes are actually lower. You're getting more bang for your buck in Westport. But having said that, what I wanted to say to you is, you are our representatives. It is up to you as the CEOs of Fairfield to protect our interests. I'm not saying cut these different programs and what have you, but you to approach it on a fair basis and have the courage as our representatives to do what you have to do, whether it's a tough decision, that's what you're here for, to make the tough decisions, to make sure that we can all still afford to stay in this town. Thank you.
My name is Eric Hamburg. I live at 1852 Hillside Road. We've been in Fairfield since 1994. We moved to Fairfield. Neither my wife nor I were from the area. I took a job in Greenwich in '93. We picked Fairfield because of the school system. Yeah, we picked Fairfield because of the school system. I own a few businesses that I started, another I bought. I had to go through the same process with 3 companies. So I've stood in your shoes, and I will say the process was very, very painful. I got in a business and started a business to build, and I found myself having to cut. And it was not pleasant. It was contrary to why I did it, got into it, but at the same token, had I not made very transformative changes in these businesses, they wouldn't be around today. Today, the businesses are providing, I would say, greater services to our customers. I've held my prices constant since 2006. We would have done a price increase in 2008. I elected not to. We've held them constant since 2006 with no price increases, yet we've increased services to our customers. We've taken massive cost out of our businesses, and the way we did it, and I had some advice from a friend who's consulted for 30-plus years, was we went to look at making transformative changes to the business. Meaning, if you look at a budget and you look at every line item and you assume every line item should be there and you say, how can we cut a few percent here or there, you're never going to get there. You're never going to get to your number. You had to look at it and question everything. Why are we even doing it in the first place? And my job as a CEO is to set the benchmark goals, and I set them in a way that no one knew how to achieve. If I said you have to, improve by 5%, everybody could have figured out how to do that. But by setting them higher than they knew how to achieve, it forced them to think differently. And if you look at the businesses today, they look nothing like they did in 2008 when we started this process. They operate differently, their processes are differently, they're structured differently, we go to market differently. So anyway, just offer some.
This this is our last speaker, and we only have 2 minutes. We are over our time limit, so please feel free.
My name is, excuse me. My name is Frank Rice. I live at 126 Hulls Highway in Southport, and I'm here as a conservation commissioner today because it's important that the budget that was submitted is maintained and not cut. As you probably know, I've been coming here for a number of years, pitching for a second compliance officer, and he got knocked out. 2 years ago, our compliance officer quit and took a job in another town, and she has not as yet been replaced. And as a result, our the open space manager is taking on her job as well as his own, and he's devoting 40% of his time to open spaces and 60% to being a compliance officer. And if you have to see him, you'll know what's affected his. Well, you can just tell by looking at him, he's going to one down. Last year we cut the budget 2%, and we submitted it to the town, and then the RTM cut it another 2%. So therefore, I'm really asking is that you accept the budget as we have presented it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, that concludes the actual public comments for this. I do want to give the opportunity for any board members that would like to make any brief comments. Is anybody? I'll start to my right. Mr. Barclay.
I'm going to take the whole thing. I will be extremely brief by just saying thank you very much for coming out. People talk about what makes this a great town and what attracted people to come live here. The truth is, among the things that attracted our family to come live here, I think in 2001, is this. I mean, this is really remarkable. I know a lot of people here are upset. Some people because taxes are too high. Some people are concerned about reduction in services. But if you look at this town and you look at the participation and the community, it's truly, truly remarkable. So I congratulate everybody for coming out on a morning and making their voices heard. And I will just assure you that we've received tons of emails and comments, and they're all considered, and we're working as hard as we can to find a compromise that's reasonable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Barclay. Mr. Stone?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Bob Stone. I've been on the Board of Finance. This is my 6th year. I've been on the RTM for 6 years before that. I just want to thank you all for coming out. It's a great thing for us to hear you in person. We certainly have gotten all your emails, both sides, and we hear them. And we all pay taxes as well, so we are very cognizant of what's going on. And I hope we do our job right. And again, thank you for coming out.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Mrs. Alvin.
Hello, and thank you, everyone. Again, I'll just comment as they have prior. Thank you for coming. This takes me back to a town I lived in probably 35 years ago when this was how the budget was done. The town just came. It was representative town meeting with every voter in town who came to vote on the budget. And so I've seen this format before. I want you to know today that I've taken a lot of notes. I've been tallying in a variety of columns as to what people feel about different parts of the budget. Some of you, I've taken your names, addresses, and put check marks next to your name because I think that you could provide some very good volunteer service to the town. And I hope that you'll be willing to step forward and do that. So by your coming out here, you've been noticed. At least by me. I'll be passing your names on. And this is a very difficult process, as it is every single year. We would like to have all the services that we have, and for that, depending upon your point of view, it's a different service to one as it is to another. But we are a town, and we provide services that we believe are for the greater good of everybody, this board, and I will speak for myself alone, I will be pouring through this budget before April 2nd with pen, pencil. I'll be looking at numbers, and I don't know if the other 8 members of this board will agree with what I might be thinking of, but at some point there will be at least 5 of us prepared to vote on line items, and hopefully it will be more than 5, and that this will be close to unanimous point of view on this board. That would be good for our town, and I certainly do intend on bringing these numbers down.
Mr. Walsh.
Good morning, my name is Jim Walsh. I've been on this board for a little less than a year. Prior to that, I've been, this is probably my 15th budget I've worked with, primarily with the RTM for about 12 years, and then on the Board of Selectmen, and now here. I would have to say that this is the toughest budget year I think I've ever seen. A lot of them are the drivers that have been discussed, the health insurance costs, pension costs, and other things. However, the original budget proposed by the first selectman, personally I feel, is completely unacceptable at 6.4. I don't think that's sustainable. One of the reasons is someone mentioned it here. That 6.4, which is now 4.8, is going to be carried forward next year, and we're just going to add to that. So that increase never goes away, because the people who mentioned that our taxes have never gone down are correct. They're not going down. I can't look anybody in the face here and say that they're going to, and honestly, and say they're going to go down. So therefore, I have to look at whatever this increase is and presume that this is going to be here next year. So to me, for one of the first times ever, this is really an affordability issue. And I've been quite honest with that in my budget deliberations. Every single department head that's come before me, I've talked about that. And I told them personally, I can't live with this tax increase. That I need to know what they can do in their budget to bring that number down. I've asked them. Some of them have been quite forthright and given me, reductions that they could do. Not one person, not one of them, has told me that they can reduce, we can lose an employee, which is disturbing, because over 80% of our budget is employees. So if I can't get rid of employees, I can't really move the needle on this tax increase. So it's been particularly difficult. I continue to go through the budget. The 4.8% that the first selectman proposed yesterday is still unacceptable to me. So I have to continue to go through this budget. I'm looking forward to figuring out where that reduction came from, because as I sit here today, I don't know where they came from. So I'm preparing my own cuts, but I'll find that information, I guess, over the next several days. But it is a particularly difficult year, and I don't see any way that if we're really going to bring this down to an affordable rate, services are not going to be able to be cut, because you're going to have to touch employees. And I think we have some of the best employees I've ever met. I've been very involved in town hall. I know some of them. I know a lot more people on the town side than the Board of Education side. But I think this is going to have to be a shared sacrifice in services. I don't see any way that the Board of Education is not going to have to be touched at some point. And I have a child who is in that system, so I'm invested in it. But I don't see how it cannot be touched. Those are my honest feelings. It's going to be a tough time, but personally, I see that number having to go substantially down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. I'll go over to Mr. Belita. Do you want this? Or do you want that one?
Grab this one. Thanks. Hi, everybody. Is this on? Check, check. Good. First of all, thanks for being here. Where were you last year? We missed you. One of the interesting things I heard talked about here today was that some people said we're losing potential residents to other towns like Westport and Greenwich, and they're going there because their schools are better, their taxes are better, their services are better. And yet I heard a lot of people here saying, we chose Fairfield because of the schools, because it's a great town. I think probably the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Now, we've got a tough job before us. It's been tough every year that I've been on the Board of Finance, and it's not going to get any easier this year. The long-range issues that we're dealing with didn't happen overnight, and they're not going to be solved overnight. So what we're left to do is to try to find a balance between not decimating services and keeping taxes something reasonably looking like affordable. It's not an easy job. We're going to do the best we can. The only thing I would say to each and every one of you who made the effort to come here today, and we appreciate it, is that a couple of years ago we had a municipal election. You might have remembered that. The voter turnout was 38%, which is pathetic, quite frankly. And I say that not just because I was involved in it, but because as a lifelong Fairfield resident, someone who grew up here, that's pretty sad. So while it's great that you're here and it's great that you send emails, make sure that you show up in November when we have municipal elections. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jim Brown, and I pause because I just have to make the note. There's more than one Jim Brown that lives in town.
Yep. He's not that Jim Brown.
So I don't write in newspaper articles, okay? Not that there's anything wrong with the guy that writes the newspaper articles, but it's just not me. So the way I look at this, I see Fairfield definitely engaged. I see people lined up on the walls. I see the tables packed. And as a Catholic, it kind of reminds me of Easter Mass. We're going to go through. Yep, and I do look at the budget and I think, my God, why have you forsaken me? But the whole issue is, with this budget, you know, it's a short-term view. And over the past 10 years, it's always a short-term view. We go from budget to budget to budget. And we have to change that. We need to take a look at long-term. And the decisions we make today, what are the consequences of 3, 4, and 5 years from now? We have to take a look at the way we provide the services, and we have to say, is there a different way to provide the services? I don't think it automatically has to be a trade-off where you either raise taxes or you cut services. But if you take a long-term view, you say, how can we provide this service in a different way? As some people have mentioned, that's what we do in private industry. Sometimes we get out of services, sometimes we get into services, but we always look at the way we provide the service so we can stay competitive. And then our customers will continue to use us because we do have competition. So that's my point, is that we need to take a long-term view, stop going from budget to budget to budget, and say, where do we want to be 5 years from now? What increases can we tolerate 5 years from now? And then take a look at the services and say, how do we perform these services, provide these services, so we reach that goal? And again, thank you for coming today, and thank you for your emails. I'm sure everyone in here has written an email, because I have about 300 emails in my inbox, but we do read them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you, everybody. I just want to echo the comments of my board, and thanking you all for coming, and specifically thank you all for the decorum. It was noted that, you know, citizen participation is what makes Fairfield special. Citizen participation in a very respectful way and having an open and honest dialogue is really what makes us stand out as a community. A couple of points. I too feel that the tax increase is too high and is unsustainable. I also want to point out, as one of the speakers pointed out earlier, we've taken some great steps on some of the longer term issues, whether it be capital planning, whether it be some of the long-term obligations. The discussion over services and what we're providing and how much those cost, I've said for a number of years, it's not a discussion you should be having when you're looking at a budget book. Okay? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. The time to have the discussion of services, what the town should be providing, what maybe we can't no longer provide, or what can be provided better by someone else, should be separate and apart from the budget process. It's got to be done in open, it's got to be done in honest, fair communication, it's got to be done with input from the citizens, but it can't be done within the budget process. It has to be done before the budget process so that the town department heads can actually plan, evaluate, and bring solid options to the administration and to the boards on how they're going to continue to provide the services, as some people say. Now, the other complicating factor, and I too have been a chief operating officer and chief financial officer of major corporations, and one of the gentlemen spoke about that earlier today, and he's absolutely right in the way it handles in private industry. The one caveat to that, and I want to tie this in to something Mr. Polito said, is that private industry in many instances, in terms of the mandates themselves, are not mandated to require certain services at certain costs at prevailing wage. It's a complicating factor. I don't want to blame it all there, but it's a complicating factor. So not only do you need to go to your municipal elections, you need to go to your statewide elections. We live in a binding arbitration state. We are sometimes held to the standards as set by other communities. Like it or not, we might not foresee ourselves as being a wealthy community, but yet we are considered a wealthy community within the state of Connecticut. And therefore, in certain instances, we're held to a higher standard because of the state implications and because of the state mandates. So to be involved is great. To be educated is wonderful. To stay involved is key. I'd like to thank you all for your time and attention, for your emails. I'd like to thank my board and Deb for giving up a Saturday morning. I'd like to thank Mr. Tetro for being here, as well as I know Krista McCarthy-Bailey is here. I also want to thank our chairman of the Board of Education and any of the Board of Education members and RTM members who are here who I did not recognize. We appreciate it. We hear you. Enjoy the rest of the day, and hopefully spring will be here soon. Thank you. I have a motion to adjourn.
No, that's not bad. I appreciate that, thank you. I'm glad you voted.